Okay, yeah. Somebody should please pray for us. Amen.
Father, we thank you for another opportunity. Thank you for gathering us together once again to learn from you and to fellowship with one another. We really invite your presence here as we study in Jesus' name. Thank you, Father, for answering us in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Alright. So I had said I wanted us to look at design. And I purposely chose that topic because I want to do a couple of things together at the same time. I want us to do many things, but all of them relating to the same design issue. And because when we're talking about design, we want to look at everything that was created, or at least you want to look at the categories of things that were created. We're looking at the categories of things that are designed, so or that have a semblance of design, that look designed. So the universe looks designed, life looks designed, the human being looks designed. And when I say the human being, I say life, they are not even the same thing. But you say as we go on. So, what we are looking out for right now is an argument for a creator, basically. Okay? So we've looked at philosophical reasons for God's existence. So we've done other arguments. We've done the ontological argument, right? Which is a more philosophical argument for God's existence. Right now, we want to look at scientific-based or science-based arguments. For example, okay, let me not get ahead of myself. So what we're going to do is, we're going to basically go back to the teleological arguments which we did before. We've done it before, but I don't think you guys got it. I think you guys didn't get it. So we're going to do it again. So that will be providing arguments for design from the universe. That's what we want to do. From the universe. You see, when you're talking about cosmological arguments and all of that, the cosmological arguments, the both of them, talk about the presence of the universe and the beginning of the universe. So the Kalam cosmological argument talks about the beginning of the universe, right? Everything that begins to exist will have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. That argument is drawn from the beginning of the universe. That's what the Kalam does, right? The Leibniz cosmological argument does not draw from the beginning of the universe. It draws from the presence of the universe, the fact that the universe is. Do you get the difference? So, both of them are cosmological arguments. Both of them look at the universe, but they don't look at it from the same perspective. Kalam is looking at from the beginning of the universe, right? Leibniz is looking at from the fact that there is something that exists that is called the universe. So you remember that question, why does something exist rather than nothing? That's what Leibniz does. But with the Kalam, you're asking questions about the beginning. How did it start? Right? What we are doing with these arguments currently is we are not looking at the beginning of the universe. We're not looking at the presence of the universe. We are looking at the kind of universe that the universe is. And we are saying, if the universe exists like this, is it possible that it came out due to chance, or are there fingerprints of a designer? So that there's the whole thing in academic and in scientific circles. There's the whole thing about evolution, and then there's intelligent design. There's evolution and then there's intelligent design. Now, it is not all intelligent designers, or like, it's not all the people that hold to intelligent design that are Christians. There are people that believe in intelligent design, but they are not Christians. They are not even Muslims. They are maybe agnostic or something. but they believe in intelligent design, right? But then, every Christian believes in intelligent design. Of course, if you're a Christian, you believe that God created. That's intelligent design. Some Christians believe in evolution. And they believe that evolution is the way that God created. God ordered creation through evolution. So, there was an initial life, and it evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved. But God was in the back trying to order evolution. Do you get? Some people believe that. And when we're talking about evolution, which is probably what we'll do next week, you'll see how funny that theory sounds. But then, there are some people that are Christians that believe that. The point would be that in academic circles, when you bring up intelligent design, what they say is that you are making an appeal to religion. So they reject it out of hand. Because like I said, every Christian believes in intelligent design. But then, every time, you see, because there's something that science does, and it's something that you should be able to pick out every time you see it. It is that in science, basically, what science does is that it's supposed to study phenomena and give theories for why these phenomena are the way they are, right? And after it gives theories or hypotheses, it's supposed to test them and see the one that is true. Basically, that's what science is, right? So that if we say that for this thing to exist, there are 7 possible causes. What science is supposed to do is to examine each of those 7 causes and say, okay, this or that or none of them is the reason for this thing. But what the scientists do is that they rule out a specific kind of evidence beforehand. They rule out certain hypotheses. So for instance, they tell you that, especially if the person is a naturalist. So when you're doing this whole science thing, what you're up against usually is scientific naturalism, which is the backbone of atheism. It is that everything is nature, right? Everything that exists is nature. There is nothing like supernature. The supernatural does not exist. Everything we have is what we have here. And what they do by that means is that by a commitment to naturalism, they have ruled out certain kinds of explanations. Simply because you are committed to being a naturalist. It's like Jikrit was killed last night. And then we're saying, who are the possible people that could have killed her? Right? And then someone stands up and says, it can only be a girl that killed her. So that there were 2 boys that were found at the crime scene with her blood on their clothes. But the detective has said it can only be a girl. In fact, one of these 2 boys, they found her skin under his nails, right? And she has scratch marks on her corpse. But the detective has said it can only be a girl. What the detective has done is that this detective has ruled out certain people from the investigation. Without even examining the evidence, the detective has made a statement. Do you get the point? That is what a lot of these naturalists do. So they come out and tell you that all that exists is nature. And when they say that, they have ruled out the supernatural. They have ruled out the metaphysical. They have ruled it out beforehand. So that before you even say, okay, let's examine this metaphysical hypothesis, you're like, no, we've ruled it out beforehand. And a lot of times, they hide as though they are being intellectual. Sometimes they come out very clearly to say that they do not want a metaphysical explanation. They do not want a supernatural explanation for the things that we see. There is a famous author that wrote and said that we cannot allow a divine foot in the door. I would find that quote and I'll send it across. How he was very clear and very blatant in the fact that they, as naturalists, as atheists, they had an a priori commitment to naturalism. And the reason they had that a priori commitment to naturalism is that they cannot allow theism to be true. Yes, he made the statement as clear as that. Right? And so, a lot of times, it is hidden, it is implicit. You don't see that that's what they are doing. But you're going to have to be able to call them out on it. Because if you are truly scientific, what you should be doing is following the evidence where it leads. That's what science is. The evidence is pointing you in a certain direction, and you're just following it. Simply. That's what science is, really. Right? But, when you try to adjust the data, you try to interfere with the evidence, simply because you don't like where it is leading, then you're not being scientific at all. Which was, when we're talking about the Kalam, we saw that thing that Albert Einstein did. Albert Einstein had predicted from his formulae, from the general theory of relativity, he had predicted that the universe would have a beginning. But because he knew that a universe that has a beginning will be a strong pointer to God, he changed the formula. And at some point, he put one division divided by 0. Because every time you divide by 0, you are going to get a very infinite answer, right? So that's what he did. Eventually, he came back and confessed that was the biggest blunder of his career. It was deliberate. It was not like he deliberately did it. That's what a lot of these guys do. So, you see, when we are looking at these things, we're going to be showing the falsehood in what they have presented. We're like, this is what they said. But when we look at scientific data, that's what it is. They're just basically saying this thing because they want to rule out certain... Do you get the point? So they do that a lot. But there are still Christians who are scientists, like serious scientists in the field of science. A significant proportion of the people that have won the Nobel Prize in Science have been Christians, at least up until the year 2000. From the year 2000, they started doing things. But a significant proportion, I'm talking like 70% across board, of Nobel Prize winners have been Christians. People are not just nominal Christians, people who hold their faith very seriously, you know. So there's this other thing that they make it look like science and faith are always in contradiction. Like science and faith are always fighting. And then I think last week was when we talked about the God of the gaps. Did we? Did we talk about God of the gaps? Oh, no. It was on the Apologetics training I was talking. Sorry, it was on the Apologetics training on WhatsApp. So, the God of the gaps thinking is that what Christians do, or what theists do, is that every time we don't understand something, we attribute it to a God. So, we didn't understand how thunder worked. So, we came up with the God of thunder. Amadioha, Shango, Thor, depending on which part of the world you are from. Like me now, from Asgard. It's Thor.
It's what?
Thor. Yes, Thor is the God of thunder in my place. I don't know that place. I don't know what it is. So, in our side is Thor. In your side, it may be... Do you guys have a God of thunder if you are not that sophisticated? Okay, so... so, now, we know how thunder works. Or we know how thunder is formed. We know what happens before thunder and lightning happens. Right? And we know that it's electricity, basically. So, we don't need a God of thunder again. Do you get the point? Did you see how they're thinking about it? So, we created a God of thunder, but now, science has explained how thunder happens. So we don't need a God of thunder anymore. Did you get it? Yeah. So there was probably a God of fertility But now, science has explained how fertility happens. We know about the hormones, we know about the cycles, we know about everything. So now, we don't need a god of fertility anymore. Do you get how they are saying it? Okay. Now, there's a response to that kind of thinking, and that response is at least on two layers. The first would be that the Christian faith is not like every other faith system. For instance, people who worship Shango and Amadioha and all of that, you would notice that they usually have a collection of gods. Right? They usually have a collection of gods. So there will be an isolated god of thunder. For instance, if you want to use the Greek mythologies are very, they are very characteristic of the kind of thing I'm talking about. So you have Zeus. Zeus is the head of the pantheon. Zeus was like the god of gods, right? He was like the king of kings, that kind of thing. He was the god that other gods were scared of. That was Zeus. Then you had other gods like Poseidon. Poseidon was in charge of water and the sea and all of that. Then you had Hades. Hades was a god that was eventually banished to the underworld. Then you had what? No, that's Egyptian. Yeah. So you had other gods, yeah. You had Hades, you had Poseidon, you had Zeus, you had all of the other gods. You had Hermes. Hermes was the messenger god. So you had all of those gods. But then, you would notice that those gods were responsible for a particular portion of what science explains. So you had a god that is responsible for rainfall and for harvest. You had a god that is responsible for thunder. You had a god that is responsible for the waves of the sea. You had a god that is responsible for fire, whatever. Did you get? The trouble with that kind of thinking is that that's not what Christians think. We don't think that God the Father is in charge of water, the water cycle. God the Son is in charge of the sun and the moon. Then God the Holy Spirit is in charge of fire and brimstone. We don't think that. In fact, it is only the Christian thinking that makes sense of science. Because the only way that science can be science is if the experiments that science does are reproducible anywhere in the world if the same conditions are met. That's why you can train to be a doctor in Nigeria and travel to the UK, write a couple of exams, and you're allowed to practice there. It's because what you learned in Nigeria is reproducible in the UK. If you did physics in Cameroon, it's the same Newton's law of motion that is there, that is in the physics in South Africa. It's because it's reducible irrespective of where you are, as long as those initial conditions are met. And the only way that science can be science in that way is if the gods were not separate human beings, or the gods were not separate beings. Because if the gods were separate beings, it means that Poseidon can stand up today and say he's beefing Zeus, so he's going to withdraw all the water from the ocean. Right? Then Hades can say, he's beefing Zeus today, so he's going to open all the volcanoes. You now notice that even if you have same initial conditions, you do not have same results. Because the gods behind those things have a mind of their own. That doesn't make sense. That's not how science works. It is the Christian faith that says there is one God. That one God is in charge of everything. Do you get the point? That one God is in charge of everything, and he has set laws in motion that govern the universe. That's the only context in which science is possible. Do you get the point? No, you don't get it. You don't get it. You are not responding fast. The only context in which science is possible is in the Christian context. So we're looking at the Christian theistic concept as against the polytheistic concept. Right? Because when people try to do the whole God of the gaps thing, they use the polytheistic concept as a way to show what they're saying. Even though we'll still see the whole Christian thing, how they try to attack the Christian thing with the same God of the gaps thing. But this God of the gaps thing is something that you come across a lot of times. That's why I'm taking my time to explain it. What they say is that every time we don't have an explanation, we invoke a God for it. Or we invoke God for it. We invoke miracles simply because we don't have an explanation. Right? So, you got married, you're unable to have a child for 15 years, then all of a sudden, you get pregnant. Right? Then, you stand up and say, God did it, God did it, God did it. Meanwhile, actually, the woman had an IUCD placed inside her 15 years ago, but she didn't know because she had an operation and the doctors didn't tell her. You know how it is in Nigeria now. They just put it inside and then they forgot, and she did not know. For 15 years, she couldn't have a child. Then after 15 years, when the duration of this thing had expired, she gets pregnant and she has a child, and then you say it's a miracle. You invoke God. Meanwhile, what happened was you did not understand. Do you get the point? Now, what they try to do is that every time we invoke God, that's what we are doing. We are simply saying we don't understand. So what we do is, instead of us to say we don't understand, we invoke God. For example, when the plague struck, right, and then people were dying and all of that, that was like in the 1700s. People said that it was a spiritual... No, the plague was not in 1700s. It was before then. They called it Black Death. People said that it was a spiritual thing, the gods were angry and blah, blah, blah. But now, we know the organism. We've isolated the organism that causes the plague. We can see that it's not any demon. There's an organism. Do you get the point? It's the same way when tuberculosis started becoming very rampant. They called it consumption. That was the name. In fact, in your KJV, that's what it uses. Consumption. It was TB. So, again, it was thought to be the gods have gone angry. But now we know that it's not the gods. There's an organism that causes tuberculosis. Right? When malaria started killing people, they thought it was the gods. But now we know it's not the gods. So they show you these kinds of things and they try to make you look like you guys are in a hurry to invoke God. Like, exactly. If we knew better, we would not have invoked God to explain these things that we did not understand. Do you get the point? You see, all of these things that I'm building, you're going to understand how it comes into play when we're even talking about the origin of the universe. Right? You guys are in a hurry to invoke a God. If we knew better, or if we waited for a while, we would have been able to come up with a response. But you people said it was God. But we said it was not God. So we continued doing research and we eventually found the causes. If we had stuck with you people, we would have stopped doing research and would have just believed it was God. And we would not have had cures for this stuff. But now, we know that it was not God. Do you get the point? Do you get how they are thinking about it? Okay. So they try to tell you stuff like, let me not. So that's the whole God of the gaps thinking, right? That we invoke God for things we cannot understand. Do you get the point? And while it is true that sometimes we invoke God for things we cannot understand, that's not what we are doing when we are looking at the universe and we are saying, let's follow the evidence. What they are doing is that they have ruled out a certain kind of evidence, or they have ruled out a certain kind of hypothesis. We don't want any hypothesis that will lead us towards the supernatural. We only want natural hypothesis. Do you get the point? Don't bring God into the picture. We want an answer that lies in nature. That's kind of how we are thinking about it. And I said that the first response when you're thinking about the whole God of the gaps thing is that we do not posit multiple gods. Because in those days, people used to posit multiple gods. It was this God, or maybe it's the God of fertility that has decided to withhold. So if you offer sacrifices and all of that, then maybe this one now is having twins. maybe the god of fertility has decided to bless him. Even though now we know that the reason he's having twins is because they used to eat a lot of yams. Yes. Yes. Yams.
Is it all yam or that Yoruba yam?
Yes, it's the Yoruba one.
Yes.
I don't know, but I know that Ondo State, Ekiti State, they have the highest rate of twins in the world.
Yeah.
Because of yam.
Because of yam. There is a chemical in the yam that induces ovulation. Yeah. So people have a lot of twins around those places. So it may now look like, maybe the god of fertility is blessing them with twins, but now we know that it was just yam that they were eating. Do you get the point? You see how they are making it look like this is what we are doing. Sometimes it is true. We jump. You say, I don't understand this thing. God must have done it. Sometimes we do that. But when we're looking at these issues, that's not what we're doing at all. That's not what we're doing. So the first way to respond to them is this argument I'm giving you about polytheism, about how science does not make sense in a polytheistic world. You can't have a god of thunder here, a god of rainfall there, a god of lightning there, a god of wind there, a god of fire there, and expect the harmony you see in the universe to continue every time, reproducible everywhere. You can't. Because these beings are going to get temperamental from time to time. When you watch Hercules or you watch any of these movies that has to do with Greek god mythology and all of that, you see that there are many things that are happening on the earth simply because the gods are fighting. Right? Which movie was I watching? This one that has Perseus inside. Is it the Titans or something?
Clash of the Titans.
No, not Clash of the Titans. It's not Clash of the Titans. It's Titans. Perseus. No, it's not. This one is just one word. It's just one word.
Then it should be Titans.
It's Titans. No, Titans was supposed to be the part 2 of the movie. The movie was supposed to have a part 2, and Titans was supposed to be the part 2. But the movie has just one. No, it's not. But the name of the hero, his name was Perseus. He was a son of Zeus, half son, right? Eventually fought. The Titans were released from where they were kept. Then he helped to kill them there was one bow, one supernatural bow. What's the name of the film?
It's Clash of the Titans.
No, not Clash of the Titans. It's not Clash of the Titans.
Lady's head.
No, it's not. Medusa. There's no Medusa in this movie.
Okay.
But then you see that, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The gods are fighting in the heaven and it's affecting the earth and all of that. So we're having things that we cannot explain and all, but it's simply because of the gods. You cannot do science in that kind of world. Science does not make sense in a polytheistic world. The only world in which science would make sense is a world in which there is a God that created, one God created everything. That one God has set laws into in motion that govern everything. That's the only way. So it's like God is not standing up today and saying, "Hi, they are doing protesting, just let rain fall." That's not what God does. Or you see, there's no protest in Benin, send them a few hailstones. God doesn't do that. God doesn't do that. Right? What God has done is that He has set laws in motion that govern His creation. Do you get? So God is not saying, Brazil, what are they doing? Say, they have match. They are playing that match on Sunday. Send thunder, send thunder. God doesn't do that. There are certain laws that He has set in motion that govern creation. That is the only way that science will make sense. Because that's the only way that you can have repeated results, reproducible in any place and at any time if the initial conditions are met. That's the only way. Gravity is gravity everywhere on the face of the earth. Do you get the point? Like, it is gravity, that's what it is. As long as the initial conditions are met, it's going to hold. That's the first way to think about it. And so I'm saying that it is the Christian concept of God that makes sense of science. The only way you can do science is if you're expecting order. And you have no right to expect order if there is no being behind it. If it's just on its own, why are you expecting order? So science actually anticipates order. Science anticipates that if we test this thing, we'll get this result. If you test it there, you'll get the same result. If you test it there, you get the same result. The only reason you can be confident enough to do science is because you are confident in thinking that there is order in the cosmos. That's the first response to that whole God of the gaps thing, right? The second response would be that the fact that we know how something works does not mean that that's the only answer. That may not be the only answer. For instance, why does your phone take pictures when you snap it, when you press the shutter? Yes, the movie is Immortals. That's the name of the movie.
Immortals?
Yes.
Oh,
You know the movie, yeah? Oh, you've not. You should. It's a nice movie. Yeah. The movie is Immortals. So there's someone that is following us, and it's the only film she used to watch it her life. Let's not bring out that. Yeah, so, yeah, the movie is Immortals. I love the movie a lot. Part of the reasons I knew it was not Clash of the Titans is because I've never seen Clash of the Titans. I've heard about it a lot, but I've never seen it.
It's awesome.
From her recommendation.
Oh, she doesn't write a script for us.
Evil.
So, the fact that you can press an imaginary button on your screen and it takes a picture, if I asked you why that happens, you have many responses to give me. Number one is because there's a company called Samsung. Right? Number two is because there are certain laws that have been built into this thing. There are certain mathematical, physical, electromagnetic, whatever, that has been built into the structure of the phone. That's why you can take the picture of the phone. Right? Number three is because the screen is not metal. If the screen was metal, if you touch it, it will not snap. Do you get the point? Number four is because there's actually a screen that you can touch. There was a time in our lives when our phones did not have screens that you can touch. If you touch it, it will not snap. Do you get? And this is something I've told you guys a lot. I think at least we've done it twice. Aristotle's four causes. Four causes. Can you remember? The first time I said it, you people did not get it. Then I said it again. There are four causes. There are four causes. There's a formal cause, there's a material cause, there's an efficient cause, and there is a what cause. There are four of them. I don't know why these courses usually don't stay in my head, even though I can explain them, but the names just don't stick. Let me pull them out. Final course, what? Okay. So, formal course, efficient course, material course, and final course. Alright. So, the final course speaks of purpose. Right? The final course speaks of purpose. The material course speaks of the material that was used to make it. Right? The efficient course speaks of the agent. Right? And the formal course speaks of the design of the thing. Okay? So, you see, with respect to this phone, we have answered those four questions. Okay, maybe let's use a car. A car might be easier to understand. Why does a car move? There are at least four reasons. Number one is because there's somebody that was called Henry Ford. That's the reason why I can. If not, we may say I've been using horses. Right? It's because of Henry Ford. Henry Ford was the person that began all of these things. right? Yeah. So you have that as efficient cost, right? Agency, the person that brought it into existence, is different from the way it works. For instance, you come into this place and then I give you a cup of tea, hot tea, and then you're like, why is there a cup of hot tea in front of me? There are at least 4 reasons. Number 1, it's because I gave you. It's because I made the tea and gave you. Number 2, it's because there's something that is called Lipton tea bags. If there were no Lipton tea bags, I couldn't have made tea out of sand and grass. Do you get the point? Yeah. So, you're looking at those 4 causes. You have the final cause, which speaks of purpose. The purpose of the thing is the reason for the existence of the thing. Why does this table exist? It's because we need to be able to put stuff on it. That's why it exists. That's the final cause. Right? There is the efficient cause. The efficient cause speaks of agency. Why does this table exist? It's because there was a carpenter that made it. Right? There is the material cause. Why does this table exist? It's because wood exists. If this table was made of metal, it will not be this table. It will be another table. In the same way, if your father and mother didn't get married, you would not exist. Something else will exist. It may still be called long tea, but it will not be you. Right? It will not be you. If you were born in the US, you will not exist. The only reason you exist is because you are born in Nigeria.
It's not like I will exist in US.
No, you will not exist in US.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I know I have been saying, oh God, why are we here? Now we have to end SARS and all. Why was I not just born in the United?
You don't have to be a Australian again.
I don't understand. I mean, that's where I'm from.
Okay.
If I was born in Nigeria, I won't exist. But I was born in Asgard.
Right now.
So, if this table was not made of wood, it will not be this table. This table will not exist. Right? This one, no. Another table may exist, but this table will not exist. The final reason why this table exists is because of the way it is made. If they made it round, it will not be this table. It will be another table, but not this table. So you see those 4 colors. So in the same way, the fact that now we know how thunder works does not mean that thunder just started working on its own. Do you get? We have at least 4 causes for why thunder works. And what science does is only one of the answers. So you have showed us the law that makes it work. Right? So you have shown us the law that made it work. Okay? So you have the formal cause, you have the efficient cause, you have the material cause, and you have the final cause. Now, formal cause speaks of form, the way it is. Material form speaks of what it is made of. Right? Those 2 are the things that can be addressed by science. So science can look at this table and say, the reason why it's like this is because the structure is like this, and because the material that was used to make it is like this. Science can address that. The 2 other answers are the things that science cannot address, which is the efficient cause and the final cause. The efficient cause is causality, the person that caused it, or the being that caused it. You can never study a car so much that you are studying the car, you see Henry Ford jumping out from the car. You can't. Right? If you were not good with phones, you never had seen a phone before, and a phone was given to you and asked you who designed it, you can never know from inspecting the phone. If there was no name on the phone or anything, you can never know from inspecting the phone who caused it. You can't. Do you get the point? There is no amount of physical investigation that will lead you to the efficient cause. In the same way, there is no amount of physical investigation that will lead you to the final cause. The final cause is purpose. You cannot, by looking at this tablet under the microscope, discover the reason for the tablet. You can't. You see, because even now, there are people who have this kind of stuff, and the purpose is for phone calls. Do you get? The purpose is for phone calls. I bought this tablet a couple of years ago. A SIM has never entered inside. Never. Okay, I used to use it to like store my SIMs and all of that. Like if I'm not using a particular SIM, I put it in. But not that I've turned on the network or something. Never. This phone has been on flight mode for 5 years. It has never come out of flight mode. Help us close that door again. You see, looking at these tablets that let's say myself and Ruth have, maybe she bought one, I bought one at the same time. The fact that she uses her own to make calls does not mean that's the purpose of my own. Because science cannot answer questions of purpose. It can't. Even if it was made to make calls, as the owner of the tablet, I can decide to not make calls with it. It means that if you want to answer questions of purpose, you don't ask science. Science cannot answer questions of purpose. You can't study a car so much and decide what is meant to be used for. You can't. You see, the best it can give you clues. But it cannot answer a question of purpose. What if you have decided that what you want to use the car for is to be storing yam? You just want to store plantains. So you bought a G-Wagon to be putting plantain inside. Science cannot answer questions of purpose. Do you get the point? So that when we're asking questions of why does this exist? How does this work? And all of that. There are only 2 out of those 4 questions that science can answer. That's the form and the material that is used to make it. But you see, the final cause and the purpose cannot be answered by science. So science cannot make moral statements. I'm trying to tell you that there are limitations to science. The reason why you need to understand this is because as we go into looking at design, we're going to need to make certain hypotheses that a lot of scientists will not agree with. They do not agree with it because they believe that science is the end of knowledge. If you want to have knowledge in any field, what you need to do is use science. So they tell you stuff like any statement that is not scientifically proven is false. Meanwhile, that statement is not scientifically proven. Right? So that statement self-refutes. It destroys itself. Did you get it? You didn't get it. Someone tells you that anything that cannot be proven by science is false. But the statement that he made cannot be proven by science. So it defeats itself. And there are a lot of these self-refuting arguments. Like someone tells you, don't impose your morality on me. Don't tell me what to do. If I should not tell you what to do, why are you telling me what to do? You should not tell me to not tell you what to do. Because if you are telling me don't tell me what to do, then you're actually telling me what to do. But you are saying that nobody should be told what not to do. Do you get it? So someone is like, no, don't impose your morality on me. Don't tell me what to do. I'm like, yeah, you too. Don't tell me what to do. If it's not acceptable for me to tell you what to do, it's also not acceptable for you to tell me what to do. So those statements defeat themselves. Like someone telling you a statement like, there's no truth. Well, if there's no truth, then this thing you said is a lie. Yes. And if there's no truth is a lie, it means that there is truth. Of course now, that makes sense. So, there are these self-refuting statements that people do. A lot of times, you need to just turn it around. Like, just turn it and see how it goes. And you'll be surprised at a lot of nonsense that people say. Don't judge me. Oh, why shouldn't I judge you? Why shouldn't I judge you? Because you are judging me for judging you. Right? It's in the heart. Me too. It's in the heart. I may be insulting you, but my true intentions are in the heart. Because you are saying that I'm saying you don't have sense because of what you are doing. Right? But you're actually saying that I don't have sense because I'm saying you don't have sense. We're in the same shoes. We're all together. All of us are senseless. Right? So there are these self-refuting statements that people make over and over and over again. Right? when scientists make statements like that and tell you stuff like science is the sole arbiter of truth, that statement is not proven by science. So, they are appealing to something outside of science to legitimize science. But they are saying that science is the only thing that can legitimize truth. Do you see where the trouble is? That they are appealing to a standard that is outside of science to denigrate that standard. They want science to be the only standard, and by science what they mean is naturalism. But they are using something outside of science to ensure that their stand stands. Do you see the trouble? Because science is not the sole arbiter of truth. There are many ways to access truth. One of the ways to access truth is science. Another way to access truth is logic. Right? That's under the category of philosophy. Right? Another way to access truth is theology. It is. Right? So, you see, there are different ways to access truth. For instance, if someone says that science is the sole arbiter of truth, which is kind of the things they say, are you trying to say that if someone says that this song is beautiful, the person is lying? Are you trying to say that we cannot make truth statements about stuff like music, about beauty, about courage? You know you can't measure courage in the lab. You can't. You can't measure beauty in the lab. You can't say actually your beauty is 7.2 pixels. Because pixel is the SI unit of beauty. Then your own is 0.4. You can't make that kind of statement. There is no scientific basis to say somebody is fine or somebody is ugly. That's why it's funny when I see ladies that are trying to lose weight by all means, because there is that standard they are trying to attain to, which is that thin, a bit skinny is beautiful. If you are chubby, you are ugly. It's even so bad that if you call the lady fat, you have insulted her. Me, I call people fat. If you are fat, you are fat. You are fat. You are fat. It's not an insult. Exactly. But you see, in our society nowadays, if you call people fat, you are body shaming. But if you call someone skinny, you are endorsing the person. Like
not skinny,
slim. Okay, your tummy is big. That's what it is.
Yeah.
If your tummy is big, I didn't make your tummy swell up. Do you get the point? Okay, we shouldn't say it. You see, this is how people used to put their husbands in trouble. Say, baby, have I lost weight? Baba knows that you have not lost weight. In fact, you have added a few pounds. But I can't tell you, because if you tell you, that's where fights will start from. Part of the things that I intend to tell my wife is there are certain questions you should not ask me. Because if you ask me, I will answer you. And if I answer you, you may not be able to bear the truth. But I'm not going to lie to you. Have I added a few kgs? Yes, you have. Especially around the arms region.
Oh Lord.
You ask me, okay, am I supposed to say no?
Advise me.
What? What? Tell me. You have added weight. Tell me in a nice way. You have added weight. Hey baby, have I added some weight? What do you think about this dress? Do you think I look very fat in it?
Yeah, well, it used to be a lot more loose on you, but now it's too tight. I don't know
what does that mean? So is it the dress that is the problem? Is the dress that is because the dress used to be loose? Did the dress shrink?
Obviously, it's you that added. You're saying that she added weight, but you're not saying it like that.
No, just say that
the
dress has
shrunk. No, that's not the idea. The idea is to tell her that she has now filled up the blank space.
Which is what? The point.
Thank you.
It's subtle way.
Have I
Subtle way of
added?
saying.
Yeah. One word. I answered this question. You used how many? And you were even thinking about it. Yes.
Okay, fine.
It's because the trouble is we have unconscious standards that we adhere to, and it's so bad. A lot of people don't even know that that's what it is. It's so bad. Okay, so you are fat. So what? I'm not saying that you should just eat junk and lose control of your weight and be unhealthy. That's not what I'm saying. But God made some people to be chubby. That's how they are made. They will now be living with an inferiority complex because they are not slim. Who told you that slim was beautiful? I saw a picture in the 13th century. The definition of beauty, if you see it, you won't believe it. Yes, the woman had beards. Yes, that's what was considered beautiful. She was obese.
Wait, was that thing true? I
Yes.
saw it, but
Yes, it does.
Oh.
You see, it's an unconscious thing.
She had beards. Like,
Young lady.
you see, you cannot even,
But
you
that's
don't
not
believe it.
marriage. Before our grandparents didn't marry women, they thought were slim. Yes. They thought if their legs didn't have yams,
They are
they
not
wouldn't
beautiful.
give children enough to help them in the farm. So if you were too slim, you were sickly and you were white material.
Yeah, even my mom told me that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, then people like me.
Our culture, yes. You will not, they will not
Like, you
like
have to have
this.
stomach.
Oh
You have
my God.
There has to be something that they can hold.
Yeah, they need to see most.
It means that you can bear children without more clothes.
Do you see? Can you see the trouble? But now, people believe that if you are like Jiki now, you are not fine. You have to be like Lumpty or Juliet. That's the standard of beauty. It's just, and I'm talking of Christian sisters. I'm talking of Christian sisters. That if someone should tell them that they are fat, well, I don't think you should go around telling people that they are fat. But if you ask me, I'm going to tell you. Like you made a hair, then you came for meeting. Then I didn't say anything about your hair. I was worshiping the Lord. I didn't see my hair. Is it not fine? It's not fine.
Oh God.
Okay, so what am I supposed to say is fine simply because you asked me?
No.
Wait, but was it fine?
I don't think it was fine. I don't think it was fine.
Oh, if you didn't think it was fine, that's why you didn't say
It's not
anything.
fine. People expect you to still tell them it's fine. You know?
Okay. No, that's
So that I feel good.
that's not right.
I'm not going to tell you a lie simply because you have a problem with handling the truth. And it's a problem that people cannot handle the truth because we have a funny standard that says that this thing is wrong. And it's an unconscious standard. And I'm saying that there is no SI unit of beauty. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like she's more beautiful than this person. It only is subjective. That's all it is. So when people say stuff like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Where should it be before? It's in the eye of the beholder. It is the person that sees, that knows what is beautiful. There are some ladies that you are going to see, or some boys that you are going to see, they are going to come and ask you out. You'll be like, God forbid, how will I marry this boy that is bald and is short? And somebody will marry that guy and will adore him. Because it's in the eye of the beholder. It is subjective. Right? Science cannot make a statement on beauty. Science cannot say this work of art is more beautiful than this work of art. There's no scientific basis for that. Therefore, science has limitations. You see, because of these limitations, we have to subscribe to other ways to access knowledge. Philosophy. Right? It's another way that we access knowledge. And so logic. It's important in accessing truth. Because even science uses the laws of logic. We've talked about the laws of logic. At least the 3 fundamental laws of logic. Right? Can you remember them? I'll tell you one. You remember the other 2. The law of non-contradiction. You can remember that one. I told you the other 2 laws of logic. There are 3 of them. You cannot violate the laws of logic. They cannot be violated. You cannot stand up and say, I want to prove that this law of logic is false. The only way you will do that is to use one of the laws to prove it. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make, this is kind of like an introduction. I didn't even know that I would go this far. But the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of times, people who claim to be scientists, what they try to do is they try to make you feel like if you are open to supernatural explanations, you are not doing science well. Because if you are doing science well, you would be closed up to supernatural explanations. You would only be accepting of natural explanations. That's what they make it seem like. Meanwhile, science is supposed to be about following the evidence where it leads. It's not supposed to be about certain kinds of explanations. It's simply supposed to be about following the evidence where it leads. You'll see as we go on that from the way that a lot of scientists talk, there are a lot of scientific disciplines that will be removed from science. Yeah. Because stuff like archaeology, don't worry, you see, stuff like archaeology, it doesn't conform to their petty definition of science. And archaeology is a scientific discipline. It is a legit scientific discipline. But people kick it out. Or at least they don't kick it out yet. But I mean, if you follow the definition they are giving, you're going to kick it out eventually. Right? So, I'm saying that if you want to be truly scientific, we need to be able to explore all the options where it leads. And follow the one that fits best, basically. For example, something like the universe. Have I explained the second god of the gaps thing? Yeah, I've explained it. The fact that you know how it works does not mean you have answered all the questions about its existence, right? Because there are at least 4 causes you need to account for, right? And 2 of those causes, purpose and agency, cannot be answered by science. At least you get, I said that, I finished that, right? So, for instance, about humans, we can do biology and all of that, but all we can speak of in biology is the way the body works. So we can speak of form, we can speak of material, we cannot speak of agency, because science cannot speak to agency, right? Science also cannot speak to purpose. So you can't study the human body and say because of the position of the kidney and the position of the heart, this was what this man was made for. You can't. You say because he has beards, he must be a Yahoo boy. That's his purpose in life. You can't make that kind of statement.
Sorry, sir. Please, the second point about
the God of the gaps thing?
Yes.
So that's the point I'm making now. That even if science can explain how it works, it doesn't mean they have answered all the questions about it. You still need to explain agency. You still need to explain purpose. Right? Science may be able to answer form and material, but they cannot explain or they cannot answer efficient cause and final cause. do you get it now? So those are the 2 things. So okay, so now we know how this works. Well, it doesn't mean that it just started working by itself. You know how it works does not mean you know who brought it into being or what brought it into being. Those are the 2 questions that would need to be answered, but science cannot answer them. So there is a limitation with respect to science. Science is limited. Science can only account for natural things. So the trouble lies in looking at something like the universe, where we know that the cause of nature cannot be inside nature. It's commonsensical. It's because of this kind of philosophical statements that scientists don't like philosophy, or a lot of scientists don't like philosophy. Because one philosophical statement has blown out your entire position from the water. Except that when they try to justify their dislike of philosophy, they use philosophy by saying something like, science is the sole arbiter of truth. Hello. This thing you said, can you prove it by science? No. You can't put the statement in a test tube to determine whether it's true or false. right? So you are applying a philosophical perspective to make this statement. But you are trying to downgrade philosophy by using philosophy. It doesn't work, right? So we have to step out of the confines of science if we are searching for truth. Not because science is wrong, but because science doesn't give all. Science doesn't give all. So when we're talking of stuff like beauty, stuff like courage, stuff like love, you can't prove it. You can't say the reason I love long tea is because of the way her nose is. Because there are many ladies that you see that have that kind of nose that you don't love. So it's not because of the nose. And I say, okay, actually it's not because of the nose, it's because she's fair. Well, Juliet is fair. She's even more albino than she is. Right? But you don't love Juliet, you love her. Because it's not about albinism or not. It's not about who is fair or who is dark. It's kind of why we all know these things. I mean, I think that a lot of people are just insincere. Because we all know that you really don't know why you love somebody. That's the truth. Why do you love this person? You don't know. You may eventually try to bring out some answers. Say it's because of this, it's because of this, it's because of that. But we all know that there is a bond that goes beyond all of those characteristics. If you saw those characteristics in another person, you may well as hate that person and love this other person. We don't know. Do you get it? We don't know what it is. There's no naturalistic explanation for love. There's none. So, stuff like the universe. And again, you will encounter the same problem when you're talking about, or when you're looking at human beings. When we're looking at the origin of life, for instance. We encounter the same problems. You see, because the universe is all of nature. The universe cannot be caused by something inside the universe. Simply because it did not exist at the time the universe was formed. Doesn't make sense. I mean, this is quite straightforward. The builder of this house cannot be in the walls. It's not possible. You cannot paint the wall if you are inside. You could not have finished the finishing of this floor, very beautiful tiles, if you were inside. You can't. That's what it is when scientists try to look for a cause of the universe inside the universe. You can't. It doesn't even make any sense. How can you be looking for the cause of the car inside the engine of the car? The only reason that the engine of the car exists is because there was a prior cause. So, if the cause is inside the engine of the car, then the engine of the car was not formed by that cause. Because that thing existed before the engine. Do you get the point I'm trying to make? So that when you're looking at nature, for instance, when you're trying to answer these questions about life, how did the universe begin? You can't look inside the universe. Science cannot give you answers. It can't. We have to go outside of the physical. We have to go into what is called the metaphysical. We have to go outside of the natural and go into the supernatural to find out what caused nature to be. The cause of the universe must necessarily be outside the universe. Must necessarily. I'm using those two words deliberately. If I say necessarily, you know what it means. We've been doing this for a while. If I say must, you know what it means. If I say must necessarily be, it's like a double emphasis. The cause of the universe must necessarily be outside the universe. Must necessarily be outside the universe. And so if you're looking for a cause of the universe, you cannot look inside the universe. Unfortunately, science does not have the tools to explore the metaphysical. It doesn't have the tools. We have to look for other bodies of knowledge that we can use to explore the things that are beyond nature. However, a lot of these scientists want to make statements about the things they cannot explore given the tools that they have with science. And they want to make it look like if you are saying that there is a supernature or there is a metaphysical, they want to make it look like you're crazy, you're talking gibberish. But it is just clear, it is just straightforward that the cause of the universe cannot be inside the universe. It's just commonsensical. I cannot be my father. Do you get? Like, I'm sure you've seen that video, I'm my own grandpa.
Yeah.
You cannot you cannot have given birth to yourself. You can't. But that's what these scientists are saying. They're just saying it about the universe. And then they say stuff like, in the same way that we didn't know about the cause of malaria, but over time, we now found that it's the plasmodium that causes it. If you give us enough time, we'll be able to find a natural cause for the universe. And I'm like, what are you saying? What are you saying? That's like saying, if you give us enough time, we'll be able to find the mason that built this house inside the walls. Can you see where I started from and how it links in? Where they say that, okay, because we didn't know this, we attributed it to God. We didn't know this, we attributed it to God. We didn't know this, we attributed it to God. But as time went on, as knowledge increased, we actually found what was the cause. So, if we are looking for the origin of the universe, right now we don't know. We will confess to you we don't know. But if you give us enough time, we'll find the natural cause. And we're like, this thing you are saying does not make philosophical sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. You cannot find a natural cause for a natural universe. It doesn't make sense. Do you see how their thinking goes? How it comes down? And you see how explaining that thing I was explaining earlier on helps you to understand this thing I'm saying now. If I had said this without saying that, you may not have understood. Right? So, they say that. And we're like, okay, that doesn't make sense. When you deal with the issue of the universe, you have to deal with the issue of life. You have to deal with the issue of life. You see, because we can be broken down into biology and chemistry. Basically, you're just biology and chemistry. That's all you are. I mean, the physical components of you, yeah? That's all you are. It's biology and chemistry. But you cannot combine atoms and molecules and create a human being. You can't. In fact, not just a human being. You cannot combine atoms and molecules and create a living cell. You can't. But you can pick a living cell and break it down to biology and chemistry. So, they have to answer the same questions. How do you combine non-organic matter in such a way that organic matter comes out of it? Organic is living, non-organic is non-living, basically. How do you combine carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, all of that? And then when you're finished, something living comes out. So that part of the trouble that a lot of people face is that a lot of people are trying to deal with evolution. Evolution is a formidable challenge to handle, right? And there are loads of materials that disagree with the evolutionary theory, even among scientists who are not Christians. A lot of scientists disagree with evolution. So when you hear people say that evolution is the scientific consensus, it's not true. It's a lie that has been propounded. They make it look like every scientist believes in evolution. It is not true. And it's not every Christian. There are many atheistic, many skeptical scientists that do not believe in the theory of evolution. That's macroevolution in the way that Darwin puts it. Right? But you see, that's not even the big deal. Or that's not as big as the bigger deal. Because evolution can only exist where life exists. The trouble is, what is the origin of life? How did life start? Because we know that you cannot combine non-organic matter in any way that will give you organic matter. You can't. And so these scientists say, if you give us what? Enough time. That's like saying, if you give me enough time, I'll make money to come out of nothing. If money comes out of nothing, it didn't come out of nothing. We know. It's juju. Juju is not nothing.
Yeah.
It didn't come out of nothing, right? So you have a hat, and then they pull out a rabbit out of the hat. Well, it didn't come out of nothing. Number one, there was a hat. Number two, there was a magician. It didn't come out of nothing. Something coming out of nothing will be that the rabbit just appears. Bush. Imagine we're sitting, all of us now are sitting, a rabbit just comes out of the ground now. Me and you, as Africans, we know enough to know that it didn't come out of nothing.
Yeah.
We will start praying. Prayer walk here and now. Because it didn't come out of nothing. Because nothing comes out of nothing. There are two ways to understand the word nothing. There are two ways. Number one, you can understand the word nothing as a term of reference. Right? What did you do today? Nothing. It's a term of reference. You're just trying to say that you didn't do anything. Right? But you can also understand the word nothing as a way to identify the existence of something. And let me explain. Nothing actually means not anything. That's what nothing actually means. It actually means not anything. So, close your eyes and think about nothing. You can't. You can't think about nothing. At best, what you're thinking about is empty black space. That's the best you can do. And that's something. Nothing actually means not anything. So, someone like Stephen Hawking said at the time that because of the law of gravity, the universe can create itself out of nothing. Yeah, he said it. Stephen Hawking, as intelligent as he was, said because of the existence of the law of gravity, the universe can and will create itself out of nothing.
Gravity.
Even you can see how stupid that sounds.
Gravity.
This was Stephen Hawking. You know Stephen Hawking? Stephen Hawking is touted to be one of the most intelligent people that ever walked this earth. The universe can and will create itself out of nothing. But if you just said because of the presence of gravity, then it's not nothing anymore.
Yeah.
Because if gravity exists, then it's not nothing. Gravity is something.
And let's even say it that way, but then gravity.
No. His point was that if you have gravity is the force of attraction between two objects, right? So things can begin to attract.
Okay. So why is it nothing?
That's another deep.
It's not even one object.
So they tell you stuff like in the quantum realm, things come out of nothing every time. Well, if you are looking at it from the surface level, it's true that in the quantum realm you can see electrons just popping out, right? But you see, the quantum realm is something. There is a place that is called the quantum realm, right? In that place, electrons can pop out, but that thing in itself is something. Do you get the point? So they try to make it look like you can have life out of nothing. You can have creation out of nothing. The doctrine of creation is that God created out of nothing. Creatio ex nihilo. That's the Latin word. Or those are the Latin words. Ex nihilo. Out of nothing. And that's what the Bible teaches. In the beginning, God. That's the only way you get a creation. In the beginning, God. There was nothing but God. Right? There was nothing but God. And I'm saying that you cannot imagine nothing. As a child growing up, I tried many times. What if nothing existed? Let me close my eyes and I will close my eyes and think about it. What if nothing existed? At that time, I wasn't intelligent enough to know that that black space I was thinking of was something. But it's actually something. right? How does life come about? How did the universe come about? These are questions that are beyond the reach of science. But a lot of them scientists that are naturalists will never agree. Do you see why we need to look at this topic? So when we're looking at design, this is what we're looking at. We are saying, these guys don't agree. So let's bring out evidence that shows that there must have been something behind the appearance of all of these things. That's what we want to do. So we're going to look at the universe, we're going to look at life. We're going to look at DNA. DNA is very important. Very important. Because DNA is information.
Very interesting, sir.
That's what DNA is. What did you study? You're science inclined? No, but you'll be fine. It's not hard. You did biology, for crying out loud. At least you know that there's a double helix. There's this double helix strand, helical strand, that has 4.
Let me get them across there.
Alright. So we're going to look at DNA, because DNA is information, right? It's information. And the amount of DNA in your body, if that information was converted into books, you'll be able to pile up the books from here to the sun.
For one person.
Yes. For one person.
Information.
So DNA is information. So when you look into a cell and you see information, if you go to the street or if you go to a beach that nobody has been on for the past 250 years, and then you went to the beach, and on the floor of the beach or on the shore, on the seashore, you see, I love gift on the seashore. Who are you going to think did it? Do you think that, maybe it's the breeze that was blowing? The breeze blew in this direction, then it did I. Then the breeze blew in this other direction, then now, after a few years, it now did the shape of the heart. That's what a lot of these guys do. Jesus did it. That's what a lot of these guys do. And make it look like we can escape explaining information. We can't, because everywhere information is, intelligence was there. Everywhere there is information, there was intelligence. It's just straightforward. Everywhere there is information, there is intelligence. And so if we can see information in the cell, it means there was an intelligence that put it in. And you can't go around it. They try very hard, but you can't go around it. Right? So these are the things that we're going to be looking at. Right? So I really don't even know what we talked about. I was thinking that we were going to go into the things, but I just felt that we needed to do this. But I'm sure that you basically have an idea of the things we spoke about. And they've given you certain basis for understanding what we're going to be doing. So next week we're probably going to look at, if we have time enough, we'll look at the universe, and then we'll look at life. We'll start looking at life, and then we'll look at DNA, and then we'll look at evolution, because I think we need to touch on evolution. The evolutionary theory, and why it doesn't work. Why evolution doesn't work as a way to explain the development of life. But the major issue would be the way to explain the origin of life. These guys are so dishonest, they've gone as far as to say that they think that aliens brought life to Earth.
Aliens, come on.
Yes, aliens. Richard Dawkins said this thing. He would rather believe that aliens brought the seeds of life and planted them on Earth than believe that God exists. You see, it's just at some point you're just being dishonest, and then at some point even your children cannot stand with you in public because you are known for so much nonsense. Richard Dawkins is one of the most illogical atheists. Like, that guy talks nonsense and people buy it and read, because the God of this world has blinded the hearts of the men that believe not. Yes. There is a way that Satan will blind your eye, that you traffic in illogicality till you die. Yes. So there is the spiritual aspect to it, because you see, let's not do this one, but part of the things that being an unbeliever does is that the Bible says that your heart is darkened. Your heart is darkened, you are without understanding. because you have been alienated from the life of God. There are serious issues. And it's part of the reasons why in our engagement with people, we need to ensure that prayer is a key part of our toolbox. It's not just talking things. It's about the fact that there must be background prayer that has gone on while you are doing these things. Because what we are up against is beyond intellectualism. The demon may manifest that way, but it's a demon nonetheless. Right? It's a demon nonetheless. So, Dawkins says all sorts of illogical stuff, and he's a bestseller. He's a bestseller. I mean, arguments that 4-year-old children can dismantle. The core of Dawkins' argument is, if God created everything, who created God? That's the core of his argument against Christianity. That's the core. I'm saying this is the highest thing he has said. If God created everything, who created God? That's the highest thing that Dawkins can bring against Christianity. And he's the most popular atheist. Bestseller.
Like the way you're saying this now, that is sounding dumb. The way when they want to say it,
They would have done a lot of studies.
they will be like, if God created everything, who created?
Well, so that's what, so, which
It's
is,
powerful for them.
yeah,
They're just saying it like it's wrong.
That's because it's done for him.
which is part of the reasons why,
Very powerful.
I mean, for instance, myself, right, the way I am like this now, I can debate Dawkins. I can debate him. I've watched a number of his debates, and he's not saying anything that you can debate. You will not believe. You can debate Richard Dawkins.
See, the guy is named. True.
He's not saying anything, no.
It's
He's
loud.
not saying anything.
It's just that his mic is still on. The guy is not saying anything. Atheists are ashamed of Richard Dawkins. Yes. Atheists. Academic atheists. Because Dawkins is a biologist. He's an evolutionary biologist, right? That's what he did. And then the guy comes out to be making philosophical statements. They're like, excuse, what are you? Based on how? Who gave you? Do you get?
From me.
So these are the kind of things that we're going to be looking at, and we're looking at the universe. We're looking at life. Then we look at DNA information, and then we'll look at evolution. We'll just do a few things to show you how evolution as a theory is not exactly the smartest thing to hold to. But that's what they teach you in school. So you write it in school. So it's part of the things I'm going to teach my children before they go to school.
Okay.
Yes. How evolution doesn't make sense. You think your child cannot understand it?
Same thing goes to school. How are they supposed to deal with that?
They'll tell their teacher, no?
To pass exams.
No, I'll tell them now. They are going to be very smart children. So they will know that to pass exams, you write what they told you. But you can cause trouble in the class.
Oh, Dad.
I have a question, sir.
Oh, I love you. I can already see it.
That's the plan. I'm going to have very smart children.
Hallelujah.
I'm mischievous. Yes. We will teach them how to. See, just raise the question. Just ask the question and don't ask another one. I have a question, sir. Tomorrow, when it comes to a question, I have a question. Say, my friend, off your mic. Anyway, so these are the kind of things. For instance, if you live in the US, the educational system is toxic. It's toxic. They are teaching them about how same-sex sexuality is expected and is even normal and all of that. It's just, you can hardly see a movie right now without the whole. Those things are just being bullied, and they have been smuggled into the educational system in the US. So if your children go to school in the US, they are going to be learning about evolution. They are going to be learning about everything that removes God from the picture. They are going to be learning about liberal ideologies and worldviews. Your children can come home and tell you that they don't believe they are male. And it may seem far from us, but it's not far anymore. You see this NSAS protest. You see that hand? Feminist Coalition. Okay. Let's go offline. Then I'll tell you some things. Those people that are pushing those things, they have an end game. And it's not NSAS. That yellow and black symbol, that you see a hand with this thing like this. That's the feminist logo. It's a feminist logo. It is the feminist logo. Right? So feminist coalition have come out and they've pushed the protests and all of that, and they've brought a lot of structure and all of that, and they've helped to make it work. And then a few hours ago, maybe yesterday or so, they released a statement about how they are also helping to fight for LGBT and queer people in your country. About LGBT, because now they have popularity, right? So they're also about LGBT and all of that, and inclusive rights. And you'll be shocked that in the next few years, maybe now there's a law that prohibits homosexuality. The law will be removed, it will be repealed. Then there will be a law that endorses it. And then they'll smuggle it into the educational system. And then our children will be at risk. So what do? Homeschooling, that's what we'll do. It's not like our children will go to school. But we'll send them to school with certain things. So when you now go to school and you now come back and I say, that thing you're telling us, they did it today. I'm like, just say, hey, so this is what he did, this is what he did. So what did he do? So I asked him one question, what did he do? People don't answer. Do you know how smart children are?
Yeah.
Oh boy. If your child can understand Avengers, he can understand 1 Corinthians. There's nothing, it's the same thing now.
Yeah.
You say you should watch Spider-Man. Your child can play PlayStation and he knows all the moves. He can cram, it's before Fatality. If you're playing Sega, Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
BBBB, AA. If your child can cram those things, he can cram the Kalam. Yes. Teach. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm saying that part of the things we need to do with the things we are learning is to fortify ourselves and our children. Because what will come, will come. And it will hit hard. I keep saying it. If someone doesn't know basic apologetics, the person should not have children. I don't know the person's plan, no. Because your children will have questions. The internet has made things very easy to access. It's very easy to access information. You can just wake up and access information right now. Right? And no matter how disciplined you are, your children are going to have access to the internet. Because that's the only way they will do school. You can't say now that your children will be 18 before they have a smartphone. You can't. Your parents may have done it for you, but you can't do it for your children. You can't. Then, nowadays, you see, the age range of children going off to the universities was high before. It's reducing. It's reducing. Now, people that are 14, 15 are going off to the universities. I went to the university at 14. Right? Yeah. I went to the university at 14. People that are 14, 15 are going off to the universities. So you can see that the time you have to indoctrinate, I am using indoctrinate in the negative sense. That one they hate. That's what I'm using. That's how I'm using the word. We must indoctrinate our children. If not, they will do it for us. If you don't indoctrinate your child, they will indoctrinate him outside. He will now come home and tell you, Mommy, I think I'm gay. If you don't indoctrinate your child, they say it's brainwashing. Yes, that's the plan. We wash their brain so that you will not wash it for us. But the time that you have to do that is reducing. You don't even have enough time. Nowadays, secondary school children are going off to boarding schools. 8, 7, 9 max. The child is in boarding school. So, do you know when your child starts learning things? Maybe at like 2, the child starts learning stuff. 9, he's off to a boarding school. If he's off to a boarding school or she's off to a boarding school, child doesn't have so much time to spend with you. At best, 3 months in a year. The remaining 9 months are with people that you have no control over. Like, no control. You don't know what's happening. If you like send it to a faith-based school, you don't know what's going on there. The only thing you know is the school. You don't know the classmates. You don't know the dorm mates. You don't know the bunk mates. You don't know anything about that. Then, now it's even worse. There are boarding schools for primary school.
Yeah.
So you just give birth to a child and give it to the world. So this child goes, let's even say that you have primary school with your child. At 9, this child goes off to the boarding secondary school. And the child comes back in 6 years' time. And is going off to the university. And at the moment that child is leaving for boarding school, your influence in that child's life is effectively ended. Can you see how little the window is? Like, the window is so short. It must be that when your children are going off to the boarding school, there are certain things that they know. And they will ask questions, we must be able to give them answers. Part of the things that I'm going to do with my children, and it's something that we should all do. In fact, it's part of why I like Dr. Craig. Dr. Craig has Apologetics for Children. He has a book that you can use to teach your children Christian apologetics. Yes. So they ask the questions and you give them answers in a way that they can understand. He even said that a lot of adults are reading the books because that's the only way they get these things. They don't get it. So adults are reading the children's books, but those books were written for children, right? It's part of, I intend to get the collection by next year, max. I intended to do it this year, but then maybe next year. I intend to get the collection of those books and then ensure that we can communicate these things to our kids. That's where the fight is first, though. Fortify yourself and your household first. First. Because something is coming and it's not far again. They already started shouting LGBT in our very before. They have started shouting it. Let these protests die down, or feminist coalition, you hear their voice. You hear their voice, then you know that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Alright, are there any questions from today? So the point is, you must understand this thing. It's not the one that your child will ask you a question and say, wait, let me check my notes. You must understand it enough to be able to give them answers. Because if you don't give them answers, they will find answers. They will find answers. Mommy, who created God? My friend, will you shut if I slap you? Are you asking who created God? I didn't give my mother a heart attack, or you won't give me a heart attack. It doesn't work anymore. That's what they did for us. But it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. I remember asking my dad that question. I remember asking my dad, the way he looked at me, I knew that you did not born you well to ask. What are you talking about?
He said it's a sin. He's not even
Yeah?
asking.
People had the courage to ask.
It's a sin. Nobody has to ask.
Don't ask. But you see, your children will ask you.
Yeah.
If they don't ask you, they will ask their friends.
Another person. So we must.
Yeah, so
Doesn't exist.
you need, of course.
It is.
Of course.
It does.
My cousin's child at the age of 4 was saying that.
Doesn't believe that. That failure is from the home.
Yeah.
There may be other implicating factors, but it's from the home. Because we need to, and these things I'm saying, I know that I don't have children yet, so I don't have authority to speak on them. But they are the things that are true, whether I can speak on it or not. We need to ensure that our children are able to ask us questions.
Trust.
Yeah. Because it's very easy for your children to not be able to ask you questions. A lot of us were there. We couldn't ask our parents questions. You couldn't tell your dad that a boy was liking you.
Say what?
You couldn't. Like what?
How?
Of course, you can't bring the boy to the house. But you see, that would have been the safe thing to do. To bring the boy in the house.
Yeah.
But you can't bring the boy to the house because your father will kill you. So what do? You meet him outside. That's what you do. You don't not meet the boy because your father will kill you. You meet him outside.
Because you want to meet him.
So, is it not better to meet him
At all.
in the house?
Yeah.
We need to create the kind of atmosphere where your child can come and talk to you freely. A lot of ladies have been abused by family members, family friends, and they can't say a word to their parents. You can't talk about it. Simply because, are you mad? How do you want to go and tell your father that his brother was touching you in the night?
That was.
How do you want to say it? In Yoruba culture, you accuse an elder. Do you get? And these children grow up into, when I say these children, I'm talking of we all have our stories. And then you grow up with certain things that you can't talk with your parents about, and then you're hiding it, and then you get bad advice, and then because, and then it just goes downhill from there. And for a lot of us, it's God's mercy that we're even here with a few scars. Some people have scars that they will never recover from, simply because the family was not a place where they could ask questions. But now everything is on the internet. If you Google who created God, you see it. And guess what? You won't see the Christian responses first. Check now. Before you see the Christian response you are looking for, you scroll down. It's because you know what you are looking for. That's why you are scrolling down. The atheistic, naturalistic responses will come up first. Sponsored posts. Wow. Say wow. Check your phone. Just carry your phone and Google who created God. You will see what you see. Those are the things that our children are going to be up against. So we need to ensure that from as they are growing up, you are giving them. Let them grow up with a consciousness of the only knowledge of what is right. That's the only thing they know. It's indoctrination. That's what I'm saying. Indoctrination. That's what we'll do. That's the only way we'll survive. We have to indoctrinate them. That's the only way. There's no way again. There's no way. You say, no, let them think for themselves. Think what? They can't think for themselves. That's why I'm their father. I think for you. In issues of life, of course, I think for you. When it's something like what you want to study in the university, you can think for yourself. Do you understand? When it comes to the issues of life, does God exist? Is Jesus Christ the Son of God? You are not thinking for yourself. You'll be born again before you are aware. You want to leave it to chance?
Yeah, I understand.
No, you can't do that. Not in this day and age. Anyway, I'm saying that if you don't want to use all of these things you are learning to help people outside, you need it for your own sanity. Because a time will come when other people will be running mad because of their children. They'll now be asking what you did. It's the same thing that people used to ask our parents. How did you people do this thing though? How did you? They'll now be saying it's prayer, it's prayer. And that's the truth, it's prayer. Because that's the only thing they did right. You see, that's the only thing they did right. It's just that they were praying and they were flogging us. That's the one they did right.
The rod of correction.
But you see, on other issues, they didn't do so well. Right? But our world is not the world that our children will grow into. Do you know the first time I saw a computer? When was the first time you saw a computer? Your child will wake up knowing that she can play game on your phone. That's the world that the child will be aware of. Do you know you will tell your children that there was a time we didn't have tablets? They won't be able to imagine what you're talking about. It's not the same world though. Not by any means. And you see, the changes that are happening in our world are exponential. It's not like something is building up. It's quantum leaps. There's one change here. In 2 generations, boom, the thing has moved there. In another 2 generations, it's more than double of that thing. Your son here can have a girlfriend in the US. And you will never know. If you don't have word of knowledge, you will never know. You say that you put parental lock, you put password. Just be there. Anyway, I hope that the point is taken.